Hey guys, NW Reverend 96 here with my retrospective on the Star Wars saga. I will be giving my thoughts as well as my experiences with each film without really going into the plot. After all, most everyone has seen these films at one point or another, so I'm not going to waste your time. Anyway, Star Wars was important to me growing up. My first exposure to the franchise was through the action figures when I was a kid. I was born in 1981, so by the time I was 3, most of the original Kenner action figures were off the market. Most of my collection came from garage sales, which meant that many of the figures didn't have their accessories or guns or lightsabers. However, they were still really cool and imaginative, and I had most of them by the time I was 5 or 6, except for the very rare ones like Yak Face or the Imperial Dignitary, the Power of the Force ones that had the coins, basically. Later, when they released a special edition, they started releasing new figures with more detail, and that was the Power of the Force line. Being in high school when they came out, I, along with my brother and father, would usually go to our local Toys R Us every time they had a new set come out, and we would actually put them away, not unbox them. In fact, there's pretty much a whole toy store down in my parents' basement full of unboxed Star Wars action figures. And now that I'm in my 30s, I've debated selling them, but only if I was really hard up for money. And even then, it would break my heart to get rid of them. And the action figures are pretty much what led me to the films. And I actually experienced the films in reverse order. I actually saw Return of the Jedi first. And at the time, it was my favorite of the trilogy because I loved all the weird aliens. And I also like the fact, you'll see right here, that Luke has a green lightsaber because green was my favorite color when I was a kid. And also the space battle was amazing and the characters were larger than life. In fact, they were so large that I was always afraid that Jabba the Hutt was going to eat me, especially when they did a close-up of him. But the Rancor was badass, and proof that you can use practical effects to bring giant monsters to life. And also, I liked the Ewoks because I was younger. Sue me, I was the target audience. I still love this movie overall, but it's lost something with age, mainly because of, my aging. It was definitely sillier than the previous movie, Empire. But I will say it does have one of the better soundtracks of the saga, but the best one was yet to come. I guess the major disadvantage of seeing Jedi first was that it took away from the big reveal in Empire, and of course I'm referring to the fact that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. So on my scale of 1 to 5, I will give this movie a 4.5 out of 5. Not perfect, but pretty darn close. Speaking of Empire, The Empire Strikes Back, I saw for the first time on NBC when it was on TV, and in fact I actually taped it. And at the time I only had an antenna because cable was unavailable where I lived. I lived in a fairly rural area. So therefore the quality was not great when I taped it. It was kind of had that snowy fuzz. And because of that I had trouble making a lot of the darker scenes out. And because of that, for the longest time, this was my least favorite of the whole trilogy. Of course, like I said, being younger, I didn't see as many cool aliens. And no green lightsaber either, which, oof. But of course, like I said, seeing them in reverse order, I would figure it out later. Of course, obviously, when I was a little older, I finally saw it in good quality and appreciated the dark nature of the story. And it was at that point that I did the complete 180, and this became my favorite of the trilogy. In fact, not just of the trilogy, the whole saga. And of course, it has one of the most shocking moments in cinema history, the big reveal of Vader being Luke's father, which is always misquoted. The line is actually, "No, I am your father," not "Luke, I am your father." That always irritates me whenever people quote that wrong. I also just really like the dark turn it takes after the mainly cheerful and aptly titled A New Hope. In fact, if you put a gun to my head and asked me what my favorite movie of all time was, this would probably be it. Also, it has the best soundtrack of the whole trilogy. So on my scale 1 to 5, this gets the perfect 5 out of 5. No questions asked right there. And I think a lot of you out there would agree with me. Okay, finally, we have Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. And it was the last one of the trilogy I saw. Like I said, I went in reverse order, which I hadn't. But anyway, this one I taped off of TV as well, and fortunately by then I had cable TV, so it came in a lot better than Empire did. But like I said, I do wish I had seen this one first because it lost some of its wow factor that it had on most people since I saw its 2 sequels first. However, that being said, this is still a grade A film with the revolutionary special effects and the settings. We're also introduced to the characters who would become iconic not just in the Star Wars lore, but in all of film lore. It borrows a little bit from all the great stories of our time and mixes it into a milkshake of awesomeness. Did I actually write that? Oh my god. Yes, this one I'm going scripted, by the way. The story, especially the ending, is very uplifting with, the underdogs, the Rebel Alliance, triumphing over their oppressors, the Empire. And this, in turn, makes the dark turn in Empire just much more effective. And this is definitely deserving of being one of the greatest films of all time. Scale 1 to 5, this one also gets a 5 out of 5. So that's the first half of my very quick and very brief Star Wars retrospective. Next time I will be doing the prequels. As you can hear, I sound very excited about that one. But I do have a lot to say about those too. So I will catch you in part 2 of my Star Wars retrospective. This is NWO Reverend 96 signing out.